It's coming, huh? It's taking long.
Maybe you also need to explain how one can do the poll, please.
They are supposed to see it on the screen. Do you see anything?
Yes, we see it. Maybe, Maria, can you explain us how we can now complete the poll? Because not everybody has done this before.
Oh, sorry. Sure. So you should have a pop-up in your window, if I understand correctly. I will not share my screen because it looks a little bit different for me since I am the host. But then you will have, so in my screen, I can see the results instead of being able to vote. But then you will have a multiple choice question. For the moment, I am mostly interested in the first question, but you will be able to answer all three of them. I see some people are already starting to answer, which is great news.
Okay, so dear participants, kindly now respond to the first poll, namely, are you familiar with the harmonized system classification? And I think we have so far received 16 responses. So kindly just respond to this before we then go ahead. So not everybody has responded yet. So I think that maybe not everybody knows how to do it, but perhaps we can move ahead while people continue to complete the poll. I understand that it is up there for another 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
No, it's in progress and we can leave it for as much time as needed. But okay. So far it has been for 2 minutes and a half. So we will just leave the poll for a few seconds and I will go back to my presentation. Then I will just minimize the poll, sorry. So, well, as a next step, I wanted to discuss a little bit the limitations of international trade statistics. I do suspect that you guys are all familiar with international trade statistics, but I think this is a very interesting opportunity for us to discuss. What are the, I want to say maybe a little bit the points that we have to keep in mind when we're analyzing the data that we have access to through the tools. So something very important to take into account is how the different countries report their data. These countries include both re-imports and re-exports. So some countries do report their re-exports in addition to their total export statistics. Sorry, I will just quickly check the... So some countries do report their re-exports as a separate information, but this is not generally the case, which is why we have to be very careful. This appears in a very curious case. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this case, but the Netherlands is one of the largest exporter of agricultural products in the entire world. This is not because the Netherlands is one of the largest producers of agricultural products, but it is because they have positioned themselves in a way that they act as what we call a trade hub. So basically what the Netherlands does is that they have specialized in importing agricultural goods and then re-exporting them to other parts of Europe. So if you look at the example on Trade Map, something that appears as a very curious data point is that the Netherlands is the third largest exporter of bananas in the world. However, it starts making a little bit more of sense when you look at import data, and then you see that the Netherlands is also one of the largest importers of bananas in the world. So this is something that is very important to take into account. So Just because a country exports a product or imports a product, it does not necessarily mean that it is being consumed or produced locally. This could also be taken into account re-imports and re-exports. This is, I think, particularly relevant for us when we're doing analysis of markets and we want to gather information on the consumer preferences. So if I was an exporter of bananas, I do have to say I am from Colombia. So I usually fall back to the examples that I know best, which are bananas and coffees, products that Colombia is usually a world leader in. So I will probably use these examples a little bit in the future. If I were, for instance, a Colombian exporter of bananas, and I were interested in analyzing the consumer preferences, then I would be misguided in simply looking at the consumer preferences of the Netherlands. I would have to look at the consumer preferences of the other markets that the Netherlands exports bananas to. Additionally, the export value refers to the total or contract value, not the local value added. You may also take into account that similar products may be categorized differently, and this is a point that we will actually revisit again when we're looking at the classification of the harmonized system. You should also take into account that exchange rate fluctuations are not always recorded, and that the values that we see sometimes in TradeMap, particularly for the yearly data, may contain information with very heavy fluctuations in both prices and exchange rates. So this is also something that needs to be taken into account when doing very particular analysis of the data. Finally, trade data is not complete, and you should never assume that a value itself needs to be taken at face value. You should always try to have a little bit of may I say, curiosity for you to find out where this value actually comes from. So it is always good to check alternate sources, and if you already have selected a product, to check information for the particular companies or institutions or organizations that work with this product. So exporter associations, some of you, I imagine, work for exporter associations, and will have a lot more information that I do as a trade analyst and someone that works with only trade data at the international level. You guys will have a lot more information than I do about the particular challenge of a single product. So I think this gives you a great position for you guys to start analyzing this data with a little bit of curiosity and the use of a lot of desk research. Another, I should say, caveat to take into account is that our trade information usually takes into account several different types of data. So the main two ones are direct data and mirror data. These are very important because we do try to have the most complete international trade data set that we can, and sometimes we might complement available information from a country with the data reported by its partners. So this is basically the difference. Direct data is data that is reported directly by national authorities to either ITC or UN Comtrade, which is one of the main sources of data for TradeMap. However, mirror data is reconstructed data based on the data reported by partner countries. So we have an example here where you can see that Australia is a country that reports its data directly. So we have Australia appearing as a reporting country, and Iran appearing as a country that does not report its trade. So we will be able to reconstruct the flows from and to Australia and Iran using mirror data from Australia. However, Myanmar does not report data, and Australia does not report any trade with Myanmar. As a consequence, we will see that it is impossible to see the trade flows either from Iran or Australia to Myanmar. So this is a difficulty for countries that do not report and for which there is no mirror data available, but it is an advantage for countries for which we either have no reports at all, or for countries that maybe lag a little bit behind in reporting. Something we do as well is maybe in the middle of the year, when not all countries have reported their data for the previous year, we can still take into account the data reported by its partners. So both direct and mirror data are taken into account for the calculation of the indicators in export potential map, and this is something that we will of course discuss a little bit more in detail in the next slides. And for trade map, mirror data appears in yellow. We will see that as well when we go live in the tool. However, something that you should be aware of when using mirror data, and it is something that we take into account in our calculations, is that exports are reported as free on board prices, whereas imports include as well not only the price of the product, but also the transportation and insurance costs. So we usually have imports. We usually see that imports will have a larger value than exports, even for the same product and the same partners. This is something that you have to be aware of, and as a little kind of like a cheat trick, if the value of imports is more than 5% larger than the value of exports, then this should be an indication that you have to take a better look at this report, because then this is an indication that perhaps one of the values is being misreported, or there are some maybe misidentification of partners, which is usually actually quite common because of this issue of re-exports and re-imports. So this is kind of a little bit of a rule of thumb that you should take into account when analyzing mirror data. That mirror data should be around no more than 5% larger than the value of exports. Now, before discussing the harmonized system product classification, I would like to actually take a look at the poll responses. So I will stop sharing my screen for a second. Okay, so I see that the polling was closed with 29 votes, and out of these 29 votes, 12 people said that you were not familiar at all with the harmonized system classification. And I am very happy to see that some other people are a lot more comfortable with it, but then I will try to spend a little bit more of time with the harmonized system classification, which I think it's a fundamental step for analyzing international trade. So I will spend a little bit more of time discussing this. And I will also take the opportunity, now that I am not sharing my screen, I will take the opportunity to just take a look at the questions that you have shared in the group chat. Lilian, is there any question that you think it's pressing at the moment, or should we continue on with the presentation?
Let me come in here, Maria. I think it's all fine. Some people commented that they were not able to complete the polling, so maybe the time for that poll was a bit too short. So let us take that into consideration for the next time. So you've seen you had some 20 plus completed ones.
Yes.
But not everybody was able to do so.
Yes, we have a little bit more than half of the people that responded. So I will, as I said, just be on the cautionary side, and I will spend just a little bit more of time on the harmonized system classification. So okay, I will start sharing
One more point. There was one question whether we will also take care of exchange fluctuations. Maybe in case that is part of the general overview on how the statistics are calculated, you could answer to that as well. Thank you.
Yes, so I don't think this is a matter so much of taking care of. I do not think that it needs to be per se corrected from the data, but you should look at the seasonal data. This is also an option that takes place in export potential map, and it can give you information about the abrupt changes in exported values. So some of these are related to simple seasonality of agricultural products, but it could also be due to large changes in exchange fluctuations. So this is something that is not included in the trade map data, but it is something of what we constitute kind of like the desk research part. We always recommend that these tools be used as kind of like a guiding step, but that additional information should always be consulted. So if you look at the seasonal data, so the monthly data, and you see that there are actually some fluctuations in the value that are not necessarily explained by seasonality in agriculture, in agriculture or in demand, then you could suspect that this is due to very large fluctuations in the exchange rate or in the prices of the agricultural goods. And this kind of gives you the suspicion of what is going on, but it should be confirmed with external data. As I said, I don't think it's something that needs to be kind of like corrected for, but it's good to take it into account. I hope that answers your question. And I will go back to sharing my screen and back to the presentation and discussing the harmonized system product classification. So the harmonized system product classification, as its name says, it's a harmonized system of products. What it doesn't say so much is that this is internationally agreed upon. So every single country that reports their trade uses these 6 product codes. So the 6 product codes are updated every 5 years. As you can imagine, new products appear or become more relevant, particularly with our technological, rapidly evolving world. So every 5 years, the product classification is reviewed and new products are either added or all products removed, maybe sometimes combined with other products. So this is something that we will discuss more in detail again during the presentation, because this becomes very important when you are comparing the data that is reported by different countries, as well as comparing the data across several different years. So this international harmonized system product classification is administered by the World Customs Organization. And as I said, I think it is a key step for being able to analyze international trade. I am not saying that you should learn it by memory. I don't think absolutely anyone knows the harmonized system product classification by memory. It contains over 5,000 products, and as I said, it changes all the time. It is sometimes also not very intuitive. So I do not think that I should or anyone should recommend you to remember these things by memory. But I do think you guys should be comfortable with the tools that are offered in Export Potential Map and in Trade Map to identify HS6 codes, which is how we refer to the harmonized system 6-digit codes. This is the most detailed level of the harmonized system classification, and I think you guys should definitely be comfortable identifying products using the tools that we are going to provide. So as I said, the most detailed level is the 6-digit level, and this is called a subheading. In this example, our subheadings or the 6-digit codes are green tea, black tea, and black tea in packages over 3 kilograms. As you can see, these products are very related to each other, and they both start with the same 4 digits. That is because the 4 digits are a reference to what we refer to as headings. So the headings are 4-digit codes that group some of these subheadings. In this example, we have 3 very related but different 4-digit codes. The 0901 that corresponds to coffee, 0902 that corresponds to tea, and 0903 which corresponds to mate, which is another kind of like hot beverage that is drunk a lot in South America. So it is actually quite related to coffee and tea. And as you can see, all of these three headings, have the same 2 first digits, which corresponds to the identification of the chapter, which in this case corresponds to coffee, tea, mate, and spices. I decided to leave spices and other products as well of the tea heading outside of this example just for simplicity, but it can get a lot more detailed actually in the harmonized system classification. So as I said before, the international agreed upon harmonized system product classification only goes up to 6 digits. That is the most detailed internationally agreed upon classification, which every single country in the world uses to report its trade data. However, as you guys probably imagine, different countries have different preferences in consumption or have different specialization in products that they export. This is where the national tariff line codes come into play. So the national tariff lines, as their names say it, are national, and these are not agreed upon by every single country in the world, but are used for, how do you say this, a little bit more of a internal priorities of a particular country. So we will not use these national tariff line codes to take a look at different information from different countries, but they are very relevant when we start looking at the preferences of a particular market or the particularities of a product that is produced in a certain country. So for instance, in this example of green tea, we will take a look at the classifications for China, Japan, and the US. So as you can see, China, we have selected for this example. As I said before, there are other details that we did not include here for simplicity, but in this example, we picked 2 national tariff line codes for China, which are ending 10 and 90, and they are flavored and unflavored green tea in packagings not exceeding 3 kilograms. For Japan, there is not a lot of detail since they choose to just keep the HS6 code and add a 00 at the end. So they do not divide this HS6 code into several different national tariff line codes. And here, as a final example, we can see the US, for which we have picked 2 different examples ending in 15 and 50, which is certified organic for the 15, not flavored, and 50, which is not flavored, but it's other than certified organic. So from this example, we can see that if we were going to export green tea to the US, then we would have to worry a little bit about this organic certification, because this already provides us an indication about the preferences for the consumers in the country. In these examples, we have only picked 8-digit codes, but I think, I am not sure about this, but I think other countries go up to 10 digits. I am not aware of any examples for which a country has selected more than 10 digits, but if they were to do it, they would be completely free to do so, because these national tariff line codes are basically at the purview of every particular country. So as I mentioned before, the HS system, the harmonized system, is revised every 5 years. Existing revisions go from 1996 to 2017. And in each revision, product codes may be created, whether this is a new significant product or a product that was already, that existed already, but became significant and was kind of like separated from an already existing code. They can be removed because the product has become marginal, or they could be reallocated because there was a large change in trade volume. However, something that I did not say before is that countries are not required to report in the latest revision. So you might have a country that reports its 2019 data using, for instance, the 2017 revision, and a trade partner for that country that reports the 2019 data using the 2012 revision. So this could also create some discordance between the reports of different countries, and it's something that needs to be taken into account when analyzing international trade. This is why the analysis of such product codes should be approached with extreme caution, and you guys should always dedicate, I think, at least a few hours, if not days, to properly selecting and analyzing the HS6 code of the product that you're interested in. So I will just quickly stop sharing my screen, and I will go back to see if there are any relevant questions.
Maria,
so I see a question.
If I may help you, there is one question from Kenya, from Jackson. Is there
Thank you.
convergence on national tariff line, the 8 digits, among countries? Examples, countries using 10-digit tariff lines.
I wouldn't say there's necessarily a convergence. I think also something I didn't mention, but I think it's appropriate to mention right now. The harmonized system is reviewed every 5 years, but the national tariff line codes can be changed by a country at any single point in time. So this is something that changes over time, and it is something that should be taken into account as well when analyzing the tariff line codes. I don't think there is a convergence, because if a particular product becomes important enough that many countries use it in their national tariff line codes, then this is a prime example of what could become a new product in the next revision of the classification. So I do not necessarily think that this convergence tends to exist. I do have to say, however, that sometimes you see some overlapping in the classification of products. For instance, I was looking at an example. Again, I am Colombian, so I like to talk about bananas and coffee, but I was looking actually at an example of coffee a few days ago, and I was interested in seeing whether a lot of national tariff line codes included a separation between Arabica coffee and other types of coffee. And the only major, I didn't check every single country, because as you know probably already, the coffee international market is quite concentrated. And I just took a look at the few largest participants in the international market for coffee. And among them, only Brazil provided information dividing Arabica coffee from other types of coffee. So this is an example of what you might think, yes, of course it could be relevant for countries to identify these differences, because it is the gist of international trade of coffee, but actually not a lot of countries do it. And even then, Brazil, they had 4 different classifications for Arabica coffee. So I think it's not fair to say that there is a convergence between the national tariff line codes at all. Do you guys have any other questions, or should at this moment, I actually plan to do kind of like a live visit to TradeMap to provide with an example that I think it's actually quite interesting in using the harmonized system classification and using the tools that we provide. So if there are no further questions, I will just move on with this.
Maria, there are a few more questions, but maybe you go ahead and we take up the questions later on. I think that should be
perfect. So let me just quickly start sharing my screen. So here I am already logged in with my account, but I will just log out to give you guys kind of like an example of how the logging in process works, and kind of like another cheat trick that I think it's quite important for the use of TradeMap. So my email. And something that I think should always be taken into account is remember my login. If you guys do not select this account, then you could have, for instance, your preferences are not selected when you move through a different screen, or if you change a selection, it will not be taken into account. So I think it's very important to remember my login, and it will avoid you having to log in again in several several changes that you make to the website. So this is actually something that I could not recommend more, to select remember my login when entering TradeMap. So now, as you can see, I have my account here at the top, and this is less relevant, but I will mention it as well. You guys can select different languages. I think in this case, English is the language that we are all most comfortable with, but just as an interesting information. Something else I want to mention is that all of our websites, we have tried to make them very independent, in the sense that you will probably not need us to understand the website if you read all the reference material. So I want to mention this because I think that once this course is over, the main way you guys are going to keep using the website is by becoming familiar with this reference material. So there is an user guide, FAQ, glossary. There's another page that I actually find quite useful for the harmonized system correspondences and for data sources. There are also videos on YouTube, which I think are quite useful if you want to explore any other functionality that we kind of mentioned on these workshops, but you guys want to explore more in depth. So this is something that I like to recommend as well for our prospective users, to become familiar and to not be afraid to kind of like use this reference material in our websites, which I think it's actually quite well done. When I joined ITC, I actually had to go through an evaluation process before I was actually allowed to give workshops on the tools. And this is the material that I really used for studying and kind of like preparing. It was quite intimidating because you kind of had like the experts evaluating you and bouncing back questions to you, and they know these tools in and out. So I passed the test. So I think it's really great material that you should always take into account. So here, what I want to dedicate a little bit more time on is the advanced search. Sorry. If you click on it, then you will have two tabs. You will be able to search by keywords, or you will be able to search by hierarchy. This hierarchy is based on, oops, sorry, it's taking a little bit to load. But this hierarchy is based on the classification between chapters, headings, and subheadings. So you will see the 2-digit level, it will be live animals, and then I will have the options for the headings, which have 4 digits, and then when I click on the plus, then I will see the option for the 6-digit levels, which, as I said, is the most detailed level that is internationally agreed upon. So for this session, I want to focus on sesame seeds and sesame seed oil. This is an example that I find quite interesting for 2 reasons. I think it's interesting in the search of the product, because it shows sometimes how fickle this classification can be and how tricky you have to be sometimes to identify the different products. But I also think it opens up for a discussion on value adding of raw agricultural products. So my first intuition, if I didn't already know the HS6 code for sesame seeds, would be to type sesame here. And this would provide me exactly the information that, that I want to see. Sesame oil. However, something that is what I mentioned was tricky is that the word here is not sesame, it's sesamum. So this is something that the trademark team has caught on and kind of like tried to provide you the related products. So you see here, sesame oil and sesamum seeds, it's not the same word. And this is something of something that can be kind of like tricky when you are trying to identify the HS6 code. So these two products that we will be working on will be sesame oil, which has the code 151550, and sesamum seeds, which has the code 120740. And now I will just quickly back to the search by hierarchy to show you how it works. So I will start with the seeds, and if I go to chapter 12, I know sesamum seeds belong to this chapter because the first two numbers of the HS6 code are 1, 2. So I know it belongs to chapter 12. So if I go to chapter 12, I will see it's oil seeds and oleaginous fruits. And then I know sesamum seeds are 1207. So then I will go to the subheading 1207. This is a good example of how fickle it can be sometimes. So 1207. And I will see that for all these other oil seeds, sesamum seeds appear as 120740 sesamum seeds, whether or not broken. So as you can see, you sometimes have to be a little bit tricky and use related words in order to be able to identify the exact product that you're interested in. This is what I mentioned before, that I always think people should dedicate several hours, if not days, to identifying the relevant product code and related products. So I will just quickly go back and see if you guys have any questions. And if not, I want to take a look at the poll results for the second question. So the second question is, what do you think is the biggest challenge for your country's export sector? I see that most of you actually selected diversifying the export basket instead of reaching new markets with products that are already exported, and increasing exports in existing exports and markets. So I want to ask, maybe not for you to share it already, but kind of like for you to ask, to think, why is this relevant? Could it be because you think the current export basket leaves the country vulnerable to sudden drops in demand or prices of the products that are being exported? Could it be because you feel that there are maybe sometimes unexploited opportunities for products that are perhaps already being produced in the country and could be competitive in international markets, but are not yet exported to international markets? Or perhaps it could be simply products that are raw products that are being exported and processed at a different location. And this leaves your country with kind of like an unexploited opportunity. So I think these are great questions that you have to think about when using the tools, because it's really related to the actual challenges that we face, or that you guys face on your day-to-day work. So this is, I think, very interesting for you to take into account while I am continuing with the presentation. And I will actually start discussing export potential map, and you will see why I think this is very relevant for the upcoming discussion. So sorry, I will just select the full screen. So export potential map, this is the way it looks, and the website is exportpotential.intrasend.org. As I said before, this is a free access tool, unlike Trade Map and Market Access Map, for which we strongly recommend you guys create an account. And this website features two indicators. The first one is the export potential indicator, which identifies products, markets, and suppliers with export potential, and helps discover how much of this potential is unrealized. The second indicator we have is the export diversification indicator. It identifies new products with favorable chances of export success in regional and global markets. As I said before, I feel that export potential map should be used as your entryway into the other tools that are provided by the International Trade Center, the other market analysis tools, because these two indicators really combine many, many different sources of information and will give you the opportunity to kind of like see the first clues as to where more time should be dedicated to. So the differences between these two indicators is that the export potential deals only with products that are successfully exported by the country, whereas the export diversification indicator deals with products that are not yet exported by the country. This leads to a very large difference, which I think it's key for you to understand how to use these indicators. The export potential provides a value in dollars of what is the potential that this product could achieve in the coming years. And this export potential in dollar value can be compared to the current exports and give you an idea of what is this unrealized gap, how much the exports of this particular product could still grow. However, the export diversification, since we don't have any value already being exported to depart from, it provides a ranking of products. So you will never see how much exports could be achieved by a particular product, but you can have a relative classification of diversification opportunities. Some quick key characteristics of export potential map. We present over 226 countries and territories with over 4,000 product groups based on the HS 6-digit classification. We feature an economic model that draws on trade, tariff, GDP, and geographic data. So as I said, combines multiple different sources and types of information. It provides an user-friendly interface with customizable, downloadable, and shareable visualizations. And we have also built country-specific versions that have additional customized analytical data that has been created on request. One of the key features of export potential map that I think a lot of its value comes from is that we assess the raw data that we take from trade map and from market access map and treat it to make sure that we have high quality in the underlying data. So there are, for instance, reports in certain years that we do not take into account, and we choose to either use the mirror data or to not take into account that information at all if the data is not sufficiently reliable. While designing the website, we aimed it to be used by trade advisors, policymakers, and private companies. So as you can see, it's a very broad audience that we had in mind, but it is precisely because the website was designed to be kind of like a stepping stone, an initial step in analyzing international trade opportunities. So as you probably saw in the previous slide, I did not say that we use the harmonized system 6-digit level classification exactly. I did mention in the past that there are several revisions, and this is why export potential map combines the product groups combines the HS 6 digits into different product groups. This is because, as I said before, we take into account both mirror and direct data, and given the different revisions, which are completely necessary, this leads to a difficulty in comparing reports by different countries. So in order to account for these revision changes, we have created the product groups, and an example here is the product code 030212, which corresponds to salmon, has been split into two different groups. one for Pacific salmon, which ends in the code 13, and one for Atlantic and Danube salmon, which ends in code 14. This happened in the 2012 revision. So for a country that was reporting in the previous revision, which was from 2007, we would no longer be able to compare to a country that was reporting on the 2012 revision. So what we have done is that we have taken all of these codes ending in 12, 13, and 14, and we have grouped them into the product code 0302XA, which we have then further grouped into 16 sectors and 73 subsectors. I will not share my screen, but not anymore the presentation, but I would rather go to Export Potential Map website, which, as I said, is exportpotential.intrasend.org, and I will show you how these product group codes can be found in our website. So this website is also available in English, French, and Spanish. And as I said, all of our websites, we have the intention that you guys will be able to use them autonomously and maybe without a constant guiding on our part. So we also have a resources section where you will be able to consult the data sources, corresponding tables, glossary, frequently asked questions, and you will also be able to find tutorials and publications where we have examples on how our data can be used and analyzed. So going to the correspondence tables, you will see that I have two different options here, the products and sectors or the countries and regions. For the products and sectors, I will simply type salmon going on our previous example, and I will see here that the product code 0302XA appears as corresponding to the HS6 code 030212, which is exactly what I described during my example. And yet again, this is another example of why I think you should dedicate a few hours, if not days, to really getting to know the harmonized system code corresponding to your product. So I will just quickly go back to the presentation and reinforce again a little bit the message of how Export Potential Map is really intended to be an initial step in the analysis. So while we draw information of trade flows from Trade Map and tariffs from Market Access Map, as well as information on land endowment, sea access, distances between countries, price elasticities, and expectations of growth for GDP and population, Export Potential Map is really a starting step, the initial step in your analysis of international trade. And after this, you should go back to analyzing the particularities of trade flows and tariffs using Market Access Map. And beyond that, further desk research is really necessary to succeed in, for instance, bringing a new product in the international market. I will now go on to show you just a quick example on how to find export potential values. So I will go online as well on the website, and I will go back to the home page. So if you'll excuse me, I'll just show you these quickly, and then I will just go back to seeing if you guys have any questions. So as I said before, we can see we have already identified our product sesame seeds and sesame seed oil. So I already know that I should maybe start looking for sesame. And here we are a little bit lucky because the sesame seeds have not really undergone any changes in the harmonized system classification. So it's very easy to find it straight away, just typing here in the search a product or country drop-down menu, just typing sesame or even typing the code that we had previously identified, then we will be able to find already the product. So here, I can click quickly on either explore markets or explore exporters, but it provides us a little bit of information beforehand. So I know, just quickly looking at these results, that there's over $2 billion in untapped export potential. So if all the trade barriers and all the different challenges were achieved by all the exporting countries of sesame seeds, then in 5 or 6 years' time, world trade, and of course all the demand expectations were achieved, then in 5 or 6 years' time, we could see the world trade of sesame seeds increase by 2.6 billion. Now, for the purposes of this example, I will click on Explore Exporters, and I will just quickly give you some information about how all the graphs on our website work. We always provide key findings of the graph below, so you guys will be able to see a very automated example on how to analyze the data and very basic kind of like introductory level analysis. So we see that the suppliers with the greatest potential to export sesame seeds to the world are Ethiopia, India, and Sudan. We also see that Ethiopia shows the largest absolute difference between potential and actual exports in value terms. So Ethiopia is the country that we could really expect the most growth in exports of sesame seed in the world over the next few years. If again, all the different barriers to trade and all the demand expectations, all the demand growth expectations were met. I also want to quickly mention that all of our graphs have these kind of like information kind of like entryways on the bottom of the graphs. So you will be able to find, for instance, definitions on what is export potential. Here we see that the export that it is the potential export value in 2024 based on projections of supply, demand, market access conditions, and bilateral ease of trade expressed in dollars. If I click here on further information, this will lead me to the resources section, glossary, where I will find even more information on how this indicator is calculated. If I see the realized potential button here, I see that the definition is that it is the extent to which export potential has already been utilized. And again, if I click on further information, it will take me to the resources section, the glossary, where I will find more information on how this indicator is defined and calculated. Finally, all of our graphs have a selection menu on the left-hand side. So if I didn't want to use the home page, I could have quickly just clicked on the exporters page on the banner and select here the product sesame seeds using the code that we already found. And I could also select a particular market here. I could also select a particular region that I am interested in, and the graph displays automatically the top 50 exporters. So I could also, for instance, I'm not very interested in Latin America, so I will remove it. I am perhaps not as interested in Europe, so I will remove it. And what else? Maybe North America is also not very interesting. So this allows me to concentrate a little bit on the markets that I am actually interested on. Then I want to introduce you to what we call pop-ups. These pop-ups provide information. I will actually just click on Ethiopia because this is the country that has the biggest untapped potential for exporting sesame seeds. And this pop-up will provide me additional information. It will tell me what is exactly the export potential value for Ethiopia in sesame seeds, what are the actual exports, and what is the untapped potential. It will also allow me to find other products for this country and markets. So I will just quickly check on markets. And here it actually introduces me to a different type of chart that we have on export potential map, which is called the gap chart. Here I will see that the main market for in terms of export potential for Ethiopian sesame seeds is actually China, with an untapped export potential of $373.2 million US dollars. I will also say that all of these graphs are downloadable, and it's also possible to share and embed them into your websites. I will just stop sharing my screen quickly, and I will see if you guys have a lot of questions, because I see actually a lot of pop-ups. So Lilia and Caroline, have you guys identified any questions that need to be addressed at the moment?
So actually, your colleague Sam, who we all met last time during the induction, she is supporting us and responding to most questions. There's one question which is still open. It's more on the harmonized system coding. So the only open question at this point in time is, can you please explain how alphabets are coming in HS code?
Okay, so I feel that there's a little bit of confusion on this point. The HS code does not have any letters, and the letters are only present on expert potential map, because as I mentioned before, we have had to group these codes that have undergone changes in the harmonized system classification. And since we do not want to create any additional confusion with already existing codes, then what we do is assign letters. So as you saw in my example, sorry, I will just quickly go back to that slide and start sharing my screen again. So as you saw in my example, this code 0302XA, it will not appear on trade map or on market access map, because it is not part of the official harmonized system classification. This is a code that we have assigned on expert potential map that allows us to use combined versions of the harmonized system classification. So as I said before, this code 0302XA combines 3 different codes corresponding to salmon. I hope this actually answers the question. Okay, so I will just go back to exploring a little bit expert potential map, because as I mentioned, there are actually 2 indicators on expert potential map. We have seen only one of them so far, which is the export potential indicator corresponding to a product that is already exported by the country. So as we saw before, Ethiopia exports sesame seeds, and it has a great potential to increase its exports in the future if, as I said before, demand growth expectations and challenges in achieving this potential are achieved. So if I just quickly share my screen again, I will be able to show you how to access the product diversification indicator. So if you go to the bottom of the screen, you will be able to see product diversification, find new opportunities. So if I click on this link, I will see the diversification opportunities for Ethiopia. So I will try to just quickly see if the product sesame oil appears here. I already know the code, 151550. So it does appear in the diversification opportunities. So this means that this is a product that is not exported already successfully by Ethiopia. So if I go back to the export potential graph and I type in the code 151550, which corresponds to sesame oil and fractions, then I will see no result, no available data. Because as I said, the 2 indicators really correspond to 2 very different sets of products. The export potential indicator, which we saw before, corresponds to products already being successfully exported by the country, and the diversification indicator, which we are looking at the moment, is for products that are not yet successfully exported by the country. So this graph introduces us to a third different type of graph that we had not seen before, that is part of the export potential map. This is called the analyze graph. And what it really shows us is information on how the indicator is constructed. So if I click here on sesame oil and fractions, I will see that the world imports for this product are $250 million, which is considerably lower than what we saw for sesame seeds. And again, for Ethiopia, I would be able to see either exporters of this product that find this product in their diversification options or markets for Ethiopia. So if I click here on markets, then I will be able to see all the different markets to which Ethiopia could consider exporting sesame seed oil and its fractions. I see, as I said before, the product diversification indicator does not provide a value for the indicator, but it rather provides a ranking. So here what we have is a ranking of potential markets for this product. These are all markets that already import the product from other producers. And I see that the market that ranks the highest is the United States of America. And I see that it imports already $85 million of sesame oil from the world, not from Ethiopia. And something that I think is quite interesting, the tariff that applies to Ethiopia is 0%. So this could already give a bit of an advantage for Ethiopian exporters of the sesame oil, conditional on other competitors not having the same 0% tariff. This is something that we could actually explore on market access map. And in order to find that, and again, highlighting how strong the relationship is between export potential map and the other market analysis tools, we have included links that actually lead to these other tools. Here, if I click on the 0%, it will create a new window for market access map, a tool that you guys will be able to explore a little bit more in the future. But what it does is provide information on tariffs, and I will be able to find out whether this 0% tariff is effectively an advantage for Ethiopia in the American market of sesame oil, which, as I said before, the 0% is not necessarily an advantage. It depends on what my other competitors have as an applied tariff. So this is something that I will only be able to find in another one of the market analysis tools. So I just quickly stopped sharing my screen, and I saw actually a very good question, where to find the year of export. As I mentioned before, on export potential map, we do not report one single year. We use a combination of years. This is also we have to create the codes. We actually, I didn't mention the exact years before, but we actually use at the moment data for 2018, 2017, 2016, 2015, and 2014. So we use 5-year data. And 2018 might seem a little bit outdated at the moment, but we were not able to update to 2019 data before because most countries had not shared their data for 2019. So we're only going to be able to calculate the export potential using 2019 data in the next couple of months or so. So in a couple of months, we will actually be using 5 years up to 2019. I see another question that shows a little bit of confusion between the two indicators, because here you see that the US is having high potential for Ethiopia. Well, we are looking at two different products and two different indicators. Before, when we saw China as the main market, we were looking at the export potential value for sesame seeds. Right now, when we are looking at United States as the main market, we're looking at the product diversification option for sesame oil. So we're actually looking at two different indicators and two different products, which is why the two different markets appear. So if you guys have no further questions, then this is actually a very important question. I think I will address it at the moment. We do not take into account data that is not quantifiable and that is not generally available for countries. So when we take into account tariffs, we take into account the most favorable applied tariff. And this is actually one of the reasons why untapped export potential could exist. If there is, for instance, a low use of preferential tariffs, then the export potential could be actually higher. In order to find this out, as I mentioned before, you will not be able to find these on export potential map, but you would have to go to other market analysis tools. In the case of tariffs, you will have to make an analysis on market access map. So as I said, export potential map is really designed to be kind of like a stepping stone into analyzing trade and kind of like giving you the clues of where to start looking at which markets might seem interesting, which products might seem interesting. But after that, you will really have to do a deep dive into the other market analysis tools and as well complement that information with desk research. So I will now go to share my screen and actually give you more information on TradeMap. So TradeMap, this is the way the landing page looks like. You already saw it when I showed you the advanced search, but this website is designed to be an online user-friendly application to analyze global trade flows based on one of the largest trade flow databases in the world. So as I mentioned before, we do have one of the largest trade flow databases in the world. However, a lot of the additional functionalities that TradeMap has really helps you analyze these trade flows. So it's not just the raw data, but there's also indicators that have been calculated by my TradeMap colleagues, and there's also other functionalities such as maps and graphs, as well as company data information. You will be able to, for instance, analyze seasonal trends, which I already mentioned in the beginning as well. So some of the key characteristics, it contains information for over 220 products and territories using data since 2001 for countries using data reported by 1,096 countries. This is including mirror data, as we saw in my initial example. It covers over 5,000 products at the HS 6-digit level, and it provides information on national tariff line codes for over 180 products. The data sources are national authorities and UN Comtrade, which is a database produced by the United Nations Statistics Division. As I mentioned before, one of the key additional values of TradeMap is the indicators that have been produced by my colleagues over at the TradeMap team. They provide information not only on the market size as reported by either the exporting or importing country, but also by its trade partners. It provides information on the market growth and dynamism, and it also provides information on performance and additional indicators that could be actually quite relevant for export success. So these trade indicators will actually be further explored in the upcoming sessions. So I will just try to give a little bit more of information on how to generally navigate TradeMap. So I want to clarify that it is a lot of information, so it takes some time for you to get comfortable with it, but once you get comfortable with the tool, then it really opens up so many doors and so many different possible pathways for analysis. So there are different colors that we use in TradeMap, so you guys can take kind of like a glance at the data and already have information just from the different colors. World aggregation of reporting and non-reporting countries are reported in purple. So wherever you see purple, this will be the world value. Negative values are presented in red, and negative values appear only for the trade balance, which is when the exports of a particular product have exceeded its imports. Sorry, for when imports have exceeded the exports of a particular product in a particular country. Then we have mirror data appearing in yellow, as I mentioned before. We have light green, which is quantities that have been estimated by the United Nations Statistics Division, and we have dark green, which are quantities that have been estimated by IPC. So as you see, there's different types of data that appears, not only as reported by the countries, but also complemented with indicators and further work done by my TradeMap colleagues. So there's other options that are available on TradeMap. So for instance, time series data, which I mentioned before. Something that I had not mentioned before is the trading services data, which is an avenue of international trade that is really becoming increasingly important. There are many challenges in analyzing international trade in services because data is not actually very high quality, which is a challenge that the TradeMap team is actually working on overcoming at the moment. There's also the revision history model for the harmonized system, which I think it's very valuable if you find out that your product actually has undergone changes of the harmonized system classification. There's also information on seasonality, including quarterly and monthly data. You will also be able to find company data with contacts and information of which products they import and export. You will also be able to use graphs and maps to visualize your analysis. And you will be able to define product and country groups according to your needs. So if I were interested in a particular product, then I would be able to see all the related products to it in my not in the predetermined groups, but in my customized group of products. I will just quickly stop sharing my screen and consult the polls one more time to see which kind of data you would be more interested in. And actually, it is the defined product and country groups according to your needs. So I will just take a few minutes of the remaining time in my presentation to export these feature of TradeMap. Just give me a few seconds. Okay, so we are now back on TradeMap, and I will go back to the home and search. And you will see in the top, I will have all the information on my account. So I will be able to manage my account, manage my country groups, and manage my product groups. So I will actually use the product groups, the products that we have been using in my previous example, and I will just want to see which are maybe the major players on international trade for sesame seeds and sesame seed oil. I will just name the group Sesame, and I will use the left-hand side menu to select product 120740. Just add it to the selected group, selected products here. And then I will go to select product 151550. So I will just click here and then the arrow, and now I have my new product. If my new product group, if I click here and create. If I go back to the home and search, I will be able to use the initial navigation window. So you can either select services or products. You will be either able to select imports and exports, and you will be able to select a product group or a single product here in the drop-down menu. So you will be able to either include maybe the name of the product if you already know it, or the code. So you could, for instance, click here 15-15-50, and then you would be able to select sesame oil. However, we're not going to do that. We're going to select the group that I just created. So I will just select here sesame. And for countries and regions, this is also a different feature that we could have. We could also, this is something that I didn't mention before, but there are actually preconceived groups on TradeMap, and SITA is actually a thing I created by myself in order to analyze trade for SITA countries when I was trying to identify interesting examples. So I will just cheat off what I already did before, and I will actually select from the options down here, I can see what is the available information for my selection. So I see trade indicators are not available because these are not available for groups that I created myself, but I will be able to see yearly time series. So I will click here. And this is a page of TradeMap as we, similar to the example that we saw before. So I see that exports for all the products in the group. Here I see that the product is all products in the group. And if I click here on the drop-down menu, I will be able to select each one, but I will just like quickly keep all products in the group before deep diving. I see that it's all countries in the region that I selected, and the partners is the all partners in the world. I see that I am looking at exports, the yearly time series by exporting country, by value, and reported in US dollars. I could also pick, for instance, by product, and just see which one of two of the products is more relatively relevant for the group of countries. This depends, of course, on the preferences that I have for my particular analysis. And then I will be able to see the exported value. So I see that the exported value for these countries to the world is actually over $3 billion. Something that is quite relevant in TradeMap and export potential map as well, actually, is that values are usually reported in thousands of dollars. So here we will see that the value is not $3 million, is 3 billion, actually $3.3 billion in 2019. I see that the largest exporter for this product in the country group is India, followed by Ethiopia, Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya, and that Rwanda actually does not currently export any of these products. I could also see, for instance, by product, and see that the most relevant product is actually sesame seeds. I could also select sesame seeds here from the drop-down menu on product, and then be able to see the exporting countries. We could also, for instance, explore the importing countries and see which are the main markets for this product for SITA countries. And this is actually in line with what we saw before on export potential map, where China is the main market for this product. So as my time comes to an end, I would really like to open the floor for the Q&A session. Are there any lingering questions before?
Yes, maybe if I can come in, Maria, we have, according to my records, we have 3 pending questions from the chat, and 2 of them are related to export potential map and 1 is related to trade map. So I start with the 2 related to export potential map. So the first question here is, to find different products potential for a given market and a given exporter, the tool returns there is no aggregated data for that view. Select a single product. what could be the issue?
Well, there is actually aggregated data for sectors and regions. I didn't delve too much into it because, as I said, this is intended more to be an introductory session. But if there's any particular example that they were thinking of, maybe that would help guide my answer a little bit more.
Okay, maybe then we park that for a moment and go to the two other questions before they open the floor. And maybe then the question is actually from Fuibe. She might come back on this. So let me go to the next pending question on export potential map. So the question is, does the product diversification export potential map account for new notification made by countries, for instance, USTR notifications regarding GSP access for certain countries?
Well, we do take into account, as I said before, the most preferential tariff available for the country. So if this tariff changes, there is of course a lag in our website, but you will be able to see results including the changes in available tariffs in the next update. However, what we cannot measure is how difficult it is to access this preferential tariff. So if, for instance, the regulations change and access to the tariff becomes much harder, and, for instance, utilization rate drops, we will not be able to measure how hard it is to access this tariff, how hard it is to comply with the requirements to actually be applied this preferential tariff. So since that it is not quantifiable, it cannot be included in our methodology, which really uses only quantifiable data. I do think, however, it is very important, and it is actually something that that you as users will be able to acquire information on through other market analysis tools, such as Market Access Map and the Rules of Origin Facilitator. It is unfortunately not included in the website.
Okay, so we have now a few more questions, mostly on the tools and I think on the type of data we have. So coming now to a question related to trade map. So there's a question, I need clarification on the company data. So I assume this is about the company data provided in trade map. I could imagine perhaps it's about the data sources for this, for that. I'm not sure, but that is perhaps the question.
Sure. We have still some time on the Q&A section, so I could go over the company data, how to access it on TradeMap, and see how it is actually presented, and what are the main sources of the data. If there are more questions, then maybe we can address them now, and then in a few minutes I can go back to sharing my screen and show you how to access this company data.
Okay, then let me go back to the chat. So there is a question, does the tool also give quantity of exports, or is it just in value?
Yes, we can also provide quantity, and this is actually something that is available in the main page. I can also go back to show you this once I go live on TradeMap. But it is also something that is available. Another indicator that is available is actually the unit value that is calculated using the values and the quantities. And this is again something that we'll be exploring for other sessions, but we can already do a little bit of an introduction.
Then there is one more request to show us how to access the company data on TradeMap. So I think there is a good reason to do this in a moment. Then we have a question about the lag time. So meaning how much time does it before the data is actually updated in the system? I think you have explained to us already a bit about a potential map, but maybe you can also tell us more about how you update the trade map data.
Yes, trade map data is actually continuously updated. As soon as new information becomes available, it will be used in the website. It depends really on how often countries report, and there is, I know, a lot of variability between the reports of the countries. I know that particularly India has a very different reporting schedule that, for instance, the United States or Europe. So it really depends on the country, and the trade data is continuously updated on trade map. However, on export potential map, we have 2 updates every year. So we have one update in the spring where we use the most recent data, and then another update in the fall where we have a change of year, because that's when most countries are usually have reported enough data that we can calculate our indicators again. I also want to say regarding the seasonal data, so the monthly data on trade map is also continually updated as soon as data becomes available from the different reporting countries.
Okay, so then also I think to show that in trade map, it would make sense, you know, you have there the page with a very good overview for each country. It's very easily, you can easily see what type of data is available, the latest data. Maybe you could show us that as well. And then there is a question from Heather. If I'm interested in getting the total exports of a country, do I use the trade indicators or the time series?
It depends because the trade indicators only shows the most recent year available, but the time series will give you several years. So it really depends on which year and the amount of years that you're interested in.
Okay. We have a question from Asefa. I need more clarification on creating product group and how much is the level of significance of the data as the market fundamentals vary frequently. So I think maybe you could take us through how to create the product group again. I think you showed us a bit, but maybe we could look into it again.
Sure.
And take perhaps a bit more time and going through it a bit slowly so that each and every one of us can really follow. I think that was also a request to be a bit slower. I would like to go back to the earlier question related to export potential map. So where you needed more clarification when the question is it possible to get export potential for all products or the top products for exporter A to market B? Or is it necessary to select one product? If yes, just by example, I was trying to check export by Kenya to Colombia, and the tool requires me to select one product only.
Yes, of course, it is possible actually. We have 3 different views on export potential map. You can either select a view that allows you to identify a market if you have already selected a product. There's another view that allows you to select a product. And there's finally a view that allows you to select an importer. So we have 3 different views. I can also show you this. We do not have a view that allows us to see the complete export potential to a particular market. Oh no, actually we do. We do have a view that allows you to show the total export potential to a particular market. And then we have a different view that allows you to see the top products in terms of export potential to a particular market. So I can also go through export potential map and show you this. And then I will go through trade map and then just answer the previous questions that were asked.
Okay, before we do that, there's one last question, and I believe this question is more about our market analysis tool actually. So the question is, what about the changes in duty tariffs? How quickly do they get updated?
I can only answer that question for export potential map at the moment. As I said, our indicator is updated twice per year. So if there are any changes in between, then there will be a lag in it being taken into account. However, market access map, which is the market analysis tool that is focusing on market access conditions, so tariffs and non-tariff measures, among others, that tool will have a different update schedule, and you will be able to consult more up-to-date tariffs than you would on export potential map. But this will be actually discussed in an upcoming session. There will be more information on this.
Okay, good. Then currently there are no more questions in the chat, so maybe I suggest that you go ahead as you proposed, namely going back to export potential map.
Okay, I will start sharing my screen now. And then, sorry, I will just clean this a little bit. So if I go back to export potential map and I am sitting on the home page, then I will see that before I used the drop-down selection menu because I had already picked an example. I wanted to explore a little bit more the market of sesame seeds and sesame seed oil. But you could also pick, for instance, a country. If I pick Ethiopia, just to see a market, see a country that we had already talked about, I can pick Ethiopia as an exporter or as a market. In this case, I will pick it as an exporter because it's in line with the example that we had seen before. And I see that the untapped export potential for Ethiopia is 2.5 billion. And the website here gives me the opportunity to either explore products or explore markets. If I go, I will just open it in a different tab so I can keep this view in hand, come back to it. If I click here on export markets, then I will be able to see the export potential from Ethiopia in all products to a particular market. So I will see that the untapped potential of Ethiopia in all products to the United States of America is $196 million. I can also see that, for instance, the export potential of Ethiopia in all products to China is $490 million. Another option here would be to navigate through the tabs. So if I go back home, I could actually go to the, without selecting anything here, I could actually go to the markets tab here. I will again close it, open it on a new window, and I will be able to select for the exporter Ethiopia for all products, and I will have the same information. China has an untapped potential of $490 million, and then the United States has an untapped potential of $196 million. If I am interested in seeing the particular products with untapped potential to these markets, then I can either do the same, select from the top of the navigation pane the products, or I can use the navigation through what we call pop-ups, as I mentioned before. So if you click on the pop-ups, you have this option here. For this country, find products. So I see that for Ethiopia, in China, as you can see here, for the exporter Ethiopia in the market China, the product with the largest potential is sesame seeds. So I see that for this product, there is an untapped potential of $373 million. So I hope this answers the question regarding export potential map. If actually, I just want to quickly mention, you could also, after selecting Ethiopia here, you could actually already click on products, and this will give you the opportunity to see, I will click the gap chart, which we are already familiar with. You will find that for the exported Ethiopia, the product with the largest potential, it's coffee in the market world. So it is quite customizable, and you're able to see many different types of aggregations on the website. So I just focused on my examples before on a very specific example that I had already handpicked in order to give you kind of like a first taste of what the website looks like and what it could do. But there are actually several different aggregation opportunities. You could also select here, for instance, a sub-region or a region if you want to see what is the export potential for Ethiopia in Africa. You see that actually in this particular market, the main product in terms of export potential is vegetables, fresh or chilled. So there are actually a lot of different customization options. We could also see, for instance, aggregated exporters. And sorry, I meant to pick Africa here. And I could see which are the main products in terms of export potential from Africa to Africa. In this case, it will be electrical energy and whole fish frozen. So as you can see, there are many different ways in which you can customize the different charts and aggregate at different levels. However, these groups are predefined. If you want to look, for instance, at export potential in all countries of Africa except Egypt, then this is not possible. In this case, you could look at the exports on TradeMap, but this will, of course, not contain all the additional information that we take into account for calculating the export potential map. And the way you would do that would be by creating a country group. So in order to do that, I will go back to TradeMap and I will work a little bit more again on how to create a product group. So I will just go back to the home and search, and I will manage my product. Sorry, I will just start again. So once you guys have created an account, this feature of creating your own customized product and country groups is only available if you have a registered account and you're logged in. So if I go to the top right side of the page, then I will find my name and I will be able to manage country and product groups. So in this case, I will pick manage my product groups because it's the example that I kind of used before. And I will be able to either create a new group or change the existing groups. So the idea here, I will just start from the beginning and I will name this example. Actually, I will name it oil seeds. I think this will be an interesting example for us. I would also have the option to change existing groups, which I will not do at the moment because we should focus on one thing at a time. And the idea here is that I have the HS6 classification system. In order to do these product groups, you should already be quite familiar with the HS6 codes of the corresponding products that you're interested in. If you will come here to create product groups already a set idea of the products that you're interested in, then it will be a lot more complicated and a lot more difficult to do. So in this case, I am only going to use products that I am already familiar with and that I already know how to navigate through the hierarchy. So this is organized in terms of the harmonized system. And since I am interested in oil seeds, I will go to chapter 15, which I already know is the first two codes for sesame seed oil. This is something that I already know, and I am not going to find it out here. If you guys want to find out these codes, then you will have to use the advanced search feature. I already know that the code for sesame seed oil is 151550. So I will just drop down here the 15 and go again to the 15 here, which, as I said already, I already know this is the corresponding code because I found that out when I was looking for the code for sesame seed oil. So I will be adding these different oils to the selected groups and products column here. So how I will do that is I will take sesame oil and I will use this arrow here to transfer it. So as soon as it appears here, then I know this product will be included in the product group. I could also pick, for instance, linseed oil, and I will add it here to the group, again, using the arrows here. If, for instance, I want to clear the group, I could use the arrows here. I could clear all products using the double arrow and basically eliminating all the products that appear on the selected products groups column. Or I could just remove them one by one. If I'm not interested, for instance, in the crude version of linseed oil, I will just remove it and keep linseed oil. Once I add all the products that I am interested in, I will just simply click here on create. And then the group oilseeds has been successfully created, and I can use these to do the analysis on the general trade map website. So I will be able to use this drop-down menu here. It says, please enter a keyword or a product code. Since I am not interested in a particular product code, but in a group, I will pick here group. And I already know these are all the different product groups that I have created. So I will just click here on oilseeds, which is the product that the product group that I just created, and I will be able to analyze yearly time series for that product group. I know we're also interested in company data and quantities. So for that, I will actually just start again from the beginning, and I will select again a product that I am interested in, but I will actually select a single product. I will select sesame seeds with the product code 120740. Sorry, I was actually logged out, so I will have to log in again. Thank you. So 120740. So here I am interested in the imports of sesame seeds, whether or not broken, and I have not selected any particular country. So once I click here on trade indicators, I will get the information for all the countries in the world. So I will always get the information at the top of the graph, and I will see that for the product 120740, which is sesame seeds, I am looking at imports and trade indicators for all countries. So I see that for the world, we have 3.3 billion imports in 2019, and the largest importer of this product is China. I can also see here on the third column that China imported 800,000 tons of sesame seeds in 2019. So we always have here the information on the unit, and here the information on the quantity imported. So we are able to see quantities on TradeMap, and finally I will use this same example that I have already selected to provide you with company information. So here I will be able to see, actually it's not very interesting if I don't see any, if I just see all the companies in the world. So instead of having all the countries here, I will just simply pick China, which I know is the largest importer of the product, and see whether there is available information on the companies. So we have the product categories here, which are edible seeds, farm product, raw materials, flowers, oilseed plants and crops, and seeds, agricultural and horticultural. And the number of companies that are importing, the number of companies for which we have data on TradeMap that are importing these particular products. So I will pick one that I think it's the most in line with the product that I am interested in, which I think it's oilseed plants and crops here. And I will find the information for the company profile here, which is, China Superfood Importing and Exporting Corporation. The country is China, the city is Beijing. I have access to their website, their phone, and the name of their general manager. So I will be able to contact them and find out more information about their importing activities of sesame seeds. I could also go back to the previous view. Oh, sorry, something I forgot to mention when looking at company data is that the sources are always available at the bottom of the table. This is true for every single table on TradeMap. And in this case, the contact information for this company comes from the Compass database. So I actually think we are right on time. So I will stop sharing my screen and see if there are any lingering questions in the last couple of minutes that we have available. Okay, I don't think so, because I see the previous one right before. So in these couple of minutes, I would like to thank all of you for your participation. I do hope this presentation has sparked a little bit your curiosity and given you kind of like an initial taste of what can be done with these couple of tools. My main goal is that you will feel a little bit more comfortable with navigating the harmonized system, which, as I said, I think it's really the first step that you have to take in analyzing international trade. Dedicate a few hours or a few days to make sure that you know the harmonized system code for the product that you're interested in, and if there are any related products. It would also be a good idea to check the national tariff line codes for the main actors in the market for the particular product. And I hope you enjoyed the next few workshops. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Maria. I would also like to thank all participants and to encourage all participants to really go to the tools. I think in the beginning, Maria has shown you that there are also YouTube videos available on how to use the tools. And of course, we will also share the recordings of the sessions. Please do not forget that Maria also prepared a small homework for you. I looked at the homework this morning and I can confirm to you that now after this training session, you should be easily able to complete the homework and comfortably able to do that. The homework you will receive after the session, Lillian will send it out in an email to you. In the same email, Lillian will send to you the recording of the last session. The recording for this session will be shared also as soon as possible. But please remember, you will receive the homework today and you are requested to do the assignment and you are requested to send an individual email to Lillian. She will then send to you the response for the homework so that you can self-assess and self-correct it. And she will also take note on who has completed the homework, because you all know, of course, it's part of, you know, the certificate at the end of the day. So thank you all very much. If there are any unclarities, of course, we can also share Maria's contact details in case you have any particular technical questions. Please also don't hesitate to reach out on WhatsApp or on individual email. Thanks so much, and we look all very much forward to seeing you on Thursday again. Have a wonderful afternoon. Bye-bye.